Hi, Matt.
Hi, Ron.
How are you?
All right, how are you?
Oh, you
Hi,
changed my
Matt.
name?
I changed your name. If that's okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to do it.
Matt, I don't know how you're keeping your head above water, but you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you for saying so. It's been a crazy, crazy week.
And it's only Monday.
Yeah. I don't know if you were watching the news right before we logged on here, but things are getting a little testy in DC by the White House.
Is that right? I was watching PBS and the national news.
I hadn't heard about the looting in Friendship Heights until I saw Morris's email.
Yeah, last night. Although it sounded like from our call with Andrew Friedson that sounded like the Montgomery County Police had a pretty good handle on it, and we're working with the DC Police pretty closely on it, which is good.
I think I'm going to get some more water. I'll be back.
Can I ask who this is calling in from the 301 phone number? 301-908-3220?
That's Doug.
Oh, hi, Doug.
Hi.
On a phone, isn't that right?
Sorry, I missed the first half of that.
Oh, so if someone is calling in, they can't write in the chat, obviously, right? So,
Right.
but can they? Can you just unmute that phone number?
Yes.
The meeting is
Okay,
started.
so that's the way we'll do it. Is you unmute that phone number in case you need to contact them.
Okay.
And for
That
the
one, the one here is just Doug anyway, so
okay, cool. Okay,
hopefully it won't be.
and then for the work session, just unmute the council.
Okay.
So I note that it's 7:01, and I want to call the meeting to order and turn it over to our distinguished council president.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey. I've just been getting a text from Barbara. She is not getting when she clicks on the link, she's getting the May 28th meeting and not this meeting.
Okay, let me email her.
Okay, great. Thank you. Actually, what I might do is I have 4 items on the agenda, the 3 that I circulated, plus I think I'll pick up the last one first until Barbara gets on, since she was particularly interested in the first one. And the last one is chapter emails. There were some snafus this last year in getting emails to everybody. And so our new chapter secretary asked whether or not we'd like to set up like one address here in Somerset that then would go out to the mayor and manager and council, or whether people wanted to have individual emails. So does anybody, because I know some of you have not been getting emails.
Well, I would like my own email, and I think Matt should have his own email.
So it isn't good enough for you to get just the same one as everybody else?
You mean it's going to be forwarded to everybody?
Yes, at the same time.
I'm not sure why, but I feel like those emails really create a lot of spam. I don't know if there's a way to fix that. I feel like I get a lot of unsolicited email because of people being able to get through to our government email addresses. Does anybody else have the same experience, or is it just me?
Why can't they just send it to everybody? Marnie.
It's a lot of extra work, I guess, but let me just, some places like Kensington have set up a special email address that
Hey,
works.
George. I'm
There
muted.
you are. We've got you, Barbara.
I don't
I
think-
can't hear them.
I don't think it's a good idea to have a joint email address, because it'll go to spam. And I think Franny's absolutely right. And I don't see why that chapter can't just send it individually to everybody who wants it.
All right, well,
I would agree with the mayor.
I will let the secretary, the new secretary know that you all would like to have individual email addresses. That was the question. Okay, Barbara, I did the last item first. Barbara, are you there? Are you're mute.
Oh, now I'm unmuted. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, so now I'm going back to the top to the first item, which was how much advance notice should be required for public meetings, hearings, and when should material be circulated? There were several concerns expressed last week about the rapidity with which some meetings got set up and sent out to people. And so Jeffrey suggested I put together a straw proposal, and in consultation with some others, the straw proposal is 72 hours public notice and 48 hours for any material in advance of the meeting. But I'm totally open to other suggestions. So how did that strike people?
Marnie,
Yes.
I thought it was good. The only thing I'd love to leave in is a provision. Hang on for one sec. It would be nice if we could have a provision where the mayor, or maybe the president of the council, or maybe 3 out of 5 of the council members could call an emergency meeting, truly emergency meeting on very short notice, because that I think is a helpful thing to have. I just don't think
We already
Yeah,
have
we
that,
have
Morris.
that provision.
We already
So
have
this
that
is-
in code. Any 2 council members can call a meeting.
so. This does not replace that.
No. It's really to deal with, like last week we had the public hearing on healthy lawns, and some people felt like the notification wasn't enough ahead of time. And we've maybe had some other things that have come up sort of at the last minute, but it has nothing to do with emergency meetings.
Thank you.
And
So-
also, I think this is an excellent idea, but also, Marnie, we would want this to apply for any meeting, committee or otherwise, because we're trying to get all this organized, and I think it's a good idea. I just want to say one thing about last week's public hearing. The reason why that was a public hearing and the reason why that was such short notice is because for 4 months, those lobbyists have been requesting to meet with me and Marnie, and it was going to be the chair of the Environment Committee, and it was going to be Steve, because this was his initiative. And then I decided that isn't, since we're all shut in, why don't we just turn this into a meeting that everybody can listen in on, and the public. So that's why. So that that wouldn't have happened ordinarily. It's just as a result of the situation, because that meeting should have taken place a long time ago.
But we also had the same situation the previous week where things were very much at the last minute. So I think there were 2 weeks in a row.
Especially with committee, and with committees, one thing that Matt and I want to do is get a master calendar, and we want committee, this is down the line as we're improving the whole committee process, so that committees can schedule well in advance, so that people can plan, and so that there won't be committee meetings competing with each other and all that. And so we just want to get this all organized. So I think this is, I'm all for it, as you know.
Well, haven't the committees now been giving at least 1 week's notice, Matt?
Yes, that's what we've been doing for the committees so far. I think we kind of set those ground rules for the committees.
And it would be good if the council came up with a general policy that they want. I think it's good. Now, a lot of times, in terms of materials, sometimes there aren't materials available, but we'll always do our best for that.
Well, does this seem, I don't think this is something we have to necessarily vote on. Is this more an administrative matter, unless people want?
I don't think you need to vote on it tonight, but I think that it would be good if something is put in writing about it, so we will memorialize it and just use it. And then if somebody forgets, we'll have it written down,
Okay, well, we could make it part of the procedures, but I think for committees, a week is good. And in fact, many of the operating committees have sort of a year-long schedule where they meet every other month on the second Tuesday or the third Wednesday or whatever. Right. So I think more what we needed to do was to make sure there was a place where other people could know about it. And that's what we're going to try and do with the website.
And then the whole idea of having so this is also important because, and also why we want to have a master calendar, which we've talked about, is because when there's some committees where some member that make a plan to have a meeting on a certain night every month, and there might be 1 or 2 members that can never come to that meeting. And that's been a problem. I think Councilmember Zeugenhauser is aware of that. So I think that before we solicit somebody to be on a committee, if they knew when it was going to meet, in advance, I'm talking about, for down the line, we just want to get it all organized.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can work on memorializing this, but it sounds like we're all sort of in the same general agreement there. You wanted to present some material on committees, and Jeffrey, you circulated something this afternoon. Did you want to say something or have people react to what you wrote? Or?
Well, if people want to, and we don't necessarily have to do this tonight. Because I know you got a big agenda there, but basically, Ron wrote a beautiful email about the difference, because people have asked the difference between a committee and an ad hoc committee. And so I listed all the committees that we've had that were in the code, and the ones that, for example, the traffic committee, that has never been in the code. That's been an ad hoc committee. But I think you, Marnie, are interested, and we have a liaison to it. So it basically functions as a committee. And I talked to the chair, Elizabeth Hurwitz, this week, and she wants it. She's interested in that moving forward as a committee. The History and Archives Committee, they used to do a lot of nice things, such as we had Somerset History Day every year.
We did the 90th and the 100th anniversary.
We did all that, right? Then also in relation to the council president and I have been working on all of our documents and our files as they come back into the town. They have to come back into the town hall now. And some of the documents are going to be, donated to the Chevy Chase Historical Society, and some we need to organize. And I know that some of the people that I've been talking to about being on the archives committee would be very interested in doing that kind of work and assisting basically me and Marnie as we go through the study.
I have a question. Can I ask a question, Matt?
Sure.
Well, Marnie's
Yes,
chair.
please do.
Thank you, Marnie. I wanted to apologize. I think I didn't know that you'd written emails this afternoon, Jeffrey. I didn't have a chance to catch those before the meeting, so I haven't read what you wrote.
Okay.
I guess I'd just like to put a pin in that, because I think it would be helpful somehow if you're going to send out messages in the afternoon before the meetings, if we could somehow get a text or something. I was busy packing, and today was unusual, but there's probably a bunch of stuff that I missed, and so I'm a little unprepared.
Okay.
So maybe there's some next time around.
Marnie, do you want to defer this till next month?
No, it's not that. I just want to ask if we could somehow have some kind of alert so that we know to go and look at our emails. That can be solved easily. My question is, the more substantive question is, speaking of committees, and because I haven't read your message about the ad hoc committees, I don't know if you addressed this, but I'm curious to know if you're intending to appoint a liaison from the council to the new ad hoc committee.
Well, that will be up to the council whether they want to have a liaison set. Which new ad hoc committee?
The one that you're proposing to develop on.
That's not
water.
That's not an ad hoc committee. That's a committee.
So
There's read the memo. You'd have to read the memo.
Well,
So,
I know I have to read the memo. I'm sorry that I haven't. That's why I apologize. But
Well, I'll let Marnie answer. It's a good question. Marnie, why don't you answer the question?
Thank you.
So Jeffrey's covered sort of the committees, and he's listed about 10 committees that he would like to have as advisors to him. And I'll just read them. Some of them are things we're familiar with and others aren't. Wellness, Halloween celebration, small cell, event notification and parking, personnel, newcomers, special events, building application, budget, and racism. He says all of these are related to the mayor's duties and not policy making or legislation. I actually had some questions about what some of these committees were about, because it seems to me like the budget committee has some policy implications. I think that the small cell committee might have some policy implications. So I wasn't sure. I was looking forward to talking about that.
Those are all good. Those are good questions, because I forgot to write that the budget committee is special because, according to the town attorney, somewhere in the code it says there's. Why don't you address that, Mr. Town Attorney? The way I look at the current budget committee is that the budget committee is advising the mayor on assembling the introduction of the budget. Now, what I've done since I was mayor, of course, is that we have done it collectively, and basically I introduce a budget that has been pre-approved by the council. That isn't the way it's really intended. But Mr. Town Attorney, why don't you address your note about the budget committee?
I'm looking for the reference now.
It's in
There
the
used to
charter,
be
I think.
a reference for the establishment of a 3-person budget committee. And bear with me while I locate that.
Because I also recall that was discussed when we did the strategic plan 20 years ago. Do you remember?
I don't think most of us were in on that strategic plan, Jeffrey.
Well, I should circulate that. I found a copy of it.
I have a copy.
Yeah, we should look at that.
I too, when there's a moment, I have just I need someone to explain to me some of these other committees that are mentioned, why they wouldn't be policy making. And do you want to talk about that while Ron is looking or not?
Go ahead, Barbara. Why don't you just raise your questions while Ron is looking?
Okay. For example, and again, maybe I just don't understand it, but I feel like the personnel committee creates policy, and the building application, I'm not even sure what that means, but if it's about the building application, it seems that that is policy as well, but maybe I'm just
Well,
interpreting
let's
this.
ask Ron. Let's ask Ron about personnel, because basically the personnel committee is me, Marnie, and you, and basically we work on the review of the. I formed that committee so you would assist me with
Right.
the review of the town manager. Then one of the things that committee is going to do is review the
Personnel manual.
personnel manual. Yeah.
But
So-
that's a policy issue. really.
Okay. So I'm leaving this to the town attorney to rule and all that. It's all the same with me. The only reason, the only thing that I would be concerned about is that, for example, the wellness committee. That committee meets from time to time, and it's sort of like a social thing, and they put out information about nutrition, and they have some programs. So I wouldn't want to see a committee like that formalized, because then you have to have Open Meeting Act, and you have to schedule it and all that. So I'm cool with whatever ad hoc committee wants to be made into a formal committee. So this was just the memo to put out all the information. And some of them haven't even ever met. For example, the committee that I wrote about racism, that resulted from, remember last year when there was a lot of talk about addressing racism in Somerset related to some of these building applications. And then I said that let's form a group. And then I got a lot of volunteers, and then other things came up. So I've never really organized that group. That building application committee, that was as a result of the letter that was written by 60 residents requesting some improvements in our building application process that would not require council approval. That's why it was an ad hoc committee. But it's the pleasure of the council. I'm not, I'm just trying to get all this on the table and get it organized and noticed and get people working on all these things. The Halloween committee, that was a committee that I formed quickly to help plan the better Halloween for the town, which resulted in, that did result in a policy recommendation to close the street and to get. So do we want that to be an official committee? I don't know.
Well, Jeffrey, I totally appreciate all your comments. Will we have another opportunity to discuss each and every one of these committee suggestions before we put them out?
Definitely.
That would be wonderful.
There's no urgency to this. It's an ongoing. It's an ongoing We've been working on this committee thing now. I mean, Rich and I started at least 2 years ago, and we've made a lot of progress, and it'll keep going. And so the purpose of this memo was to get input from all of you. That's all.
I think Franny wanted to say something. At least
Thank
it
you.
looked like it.
I've forgotten how to raise my hand with the button. When I hear you say that the goal of the building application committee was to try to change things that would not require council approval, that sort of raises some red flags for me. So I guess I'd just like to ask that even if we have a committee that takes actions that don't require a council approval, that the council should have an opportunity to limit the scope of what that committee can do to make sure that they don't actually go ahead and change things that would have required council approval, which we would then have to unwind.
I wholeheartedly agree with Franny.
Ron, did you find what you were looking for?
Oh, not yet. I apologize.
Oh, okay. There's something in the charter.
We may have taken it out of the charter. I'm looking at our charter amendment list now.
In 8341, maybe. I don't know. Well, we don't have to answer that question tonight. I think this is a good start to the conversation about committees, and I actually think it's excellent that we are focusing on committees. Our committees have been really important to us in many areas where they've made recommendations, we've made progress, whether it's things that the Environment Committee has done or the Halloween Committee. I mean, all kinds of committees have helped move the town forward. So I think that's good.
Although my one concern, Marnie, would be obviously because this is an open meeting, and there will be many residents that will be interested in serving on these committees. So I guess I just want to confirm that before these committees are created, that the council has the ability to sort of talk each and every one of them through, and just to make sure that we're all on the same page before a committee is created. And I respectfully ask that the council as a whole can have that discussion before the committees are created.
I agree.
Well, I'm sort of struggling with what was written here about what the mayor's powers are, and maybe that's someplace where our attorney can weigh in.
As our president, Marnie, what do you think about that? As president of the council, how do you feel about that? My comment.
I think it's a good idea for us to be able to talk through each of the committees, just so we understand. I think the notion of whether there would be a council liaison, for example, would depend on what the mission of the ad hoc committee was. We've always had several council members working with the budget committee, but I don't think we've ever had council members working closely with the wellness committee. So, I mean, these are very different kinds of committees, and so I think how we would work with them or not would differ quite a bit. Did that answer your question?
Sort of. I just want to make sure the council, that you agree that the council should have some input about the creation of the committees before they're created.
Well, I'd like to understand the mission. For example, I had questions about the small cell committee because that has really been a kind of policy area of the people who, mainly the one person who's been our advisor, the mayor's advisor, has generated ideas which have helped write testimony for the town. I consider that policy. So I would need to sort of think about each and every committee,
right?
Things like that.
That's where you need to look at I mean, honestly, that committee has just been one person.
Right.
And so the reason why I sort of gave that name as a committee, the reason I kind of named it, because she testified on our behalf. So I thought her presentation was stronger if she could say, I was the chair of the Somerset, whatever it was. But if you look at what the town attorney wrote, the mayor can appoint committees and so I'm not sure that was necessarily a policy. I don't know, that's a gray area, whether it's,
Matt?
whether that's small, so I don't know. I mean, Matt, Ron, what do you think?
In 1 minute, because I have one more topic I want to cover, and Franny also wants to say something.
Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to follow up, which is when we continue this conversation about committees, I'd like to make sure that we also talk about the degree of deference that we give to the committee recommendations in terms of the policy, because it seems to me over the last, my time on the council, that there are some committees that we give a great amount of deference to in terms of their recommendations, and others that perhaps we don't. I mean, I think, for instance, you could say that the pool committee or the tennis court committee, PNRC, if they come in with a recommendation for something that should be done, the council members tend to rely heavily on that. And I think it would be an important part of any conversation about the creation of a new committee, in addition to understanding the committee's scope, is to air out what kind of reliance the council will place on the committee's recommendations. And also whether or not they have the authority to spend money and whether they have money allocated to them in the budget. So I just wanted to mention that so when we come back to it, we can talk about committees in that full way.
Well, see, that's a
very rich discussion. can I just say that I wanted to cover one other item, Jeffrey? I'm really sorry, but
No, we can continue this.
definitely, this was a great start to the conversation. The third thing on the list was I'm trying to figure out where the council members are on the Healthy Lawns Initiative. We've had 2 public hearings, a pretty robust discussion. I'm wondering whether we're now about ready to put this, introduce this or not on a council agenda.
I think it's a good idea. We should go ahead and put it on the agenda.
I'm okay with that as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes. So thank you very much, Franny, Barbara, Marnie. You know, I think we've gone through a good deliberative process with those open hearings. I think we covered a lot of ground, and hopefully we're ready to consider it, and we can ask. What I plan to do is, in the formal part of this meeting, introduce this so that we can ask the town lawyer to prepare the language for us to vote on at the July meeting.
Yes, as I understand it, it's a 2-step process like any other code amendment. There's an introduction at one meeting, and then at the next meeting, it's actually taken up for a formal vote. So no action would be taken tonight. If we were to put it on the agenda, it would be at the July meeting.
And I would just like to mention again that I checked with Shorb Landscaping, and that's the company that we use. And they've been abiding by the law since the law was enacted in Somerset. It's not as if they come into Somerset and say, oh, you're a municipality, so we're going to start spraying a lot of pesticides. They abide by the law with all of their clients, despite the fact that we have not opted in. And I think, I would imagine that they're not very different from many other landscape companies.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So we have actually 2 minutes left, having raced through that. So if there's anything else for the good of the order that someone would like to bring up in this section, Ron, I cut you off, so.
Yeah, and so the provision I was recalling is with respect to an audit committee, not a budget committee. Section 8355 establishes an audit committee of 3 persons appointed by the council to review the books annually.
Isn't it 5? I think we changed it to 5.
No, it's 3.
We reduced it.
No, I think it's been 3 for as long as I know it. Maybe it hasn't always been.
Well, we'll look at that. We need to look at that. Okay, good.
Okay.
But I guess that brings us back to the question then, can the budget committee be an ad hoc committee, or does it have to be?
So I'd like to spend some time with the list.
Yes, I would appreciate that.
And determine whether, you know, the duties to be performed would be within the council or the mayor's purview. So and it might also be helpful to mention that, you know, part of the code revision process that Councilmember Peel spearheaded would require, as a best practice going forward, that every committee have a charter, because we did take the committee rules out of the code so that they could be amended more easily from time to time as needed without an ordinance. And frankly, because there was so much language that didn't make sense to be in an ordinance, because a lot of it was procedural rather than law. So if that gives you an additional sense of comfort, you know, each committee could have a charter specifying.
Well, that's what we're moving forward on.
So Ron, you'll take a look at each and every one of these committees before we move forward with any of them?
If I'm so tasked, yes.
Okay, well.
Yes, we've already tasked you to do that.
Perfect.
But for example, I think everyone knows that we've had historic legal issues with the swim team committee. And right now, the structure is causing some concern for the way they function. So we're working with, Matt and I are working with the chair so that we can make everything kosher and protect any liability that could possibly be incurred by the swim team committee. So, and I think that by next month, we'll be ready to present that to the council for approval.
Great.
Thank you very much. Well, I think we're drawing the work session to conclusion. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody, for your participation.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Madam President. And Matt, if you could mute everybody now. Okay, so I'm calling this regular meeting of the Somerset Town Council to order. Before we get to our agenda, as a reminder to residents and participants, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the town website. There will be a public comment period at the outset of the meeting. Additionally, we will allow for comments after the council has had a chance to discuss the agenda items labeled public hearing on the agenda that was distributed by the town and posted on the town website. We ask that residents and guests please hold questions until you have been called on, and to use the raise hand feature if you would like to speak. Before you make your comments, please state your name and the street that you live on for records keeping purposes. We will limit the resident comment period to 30 minutes total and ask that you please limit your comments to 2 minutes per person. If this meeting gets interrupted, we will immediately end the call and send instructions on a new meeting via email. We will now start the meeting, but before we do, I would like to note that today is the National Day of Remembrance for COVID victims, and also to honor the memory of George Floyd, who was senselessly murdered last week in Minneapolis. I would like to request a moment of silence. Okay, thank you, everyone. We will now move to our public comment period. And again, we will ask that anyone who would like to comment, resident or guest. Matt, has anybody raised their hand?
Nobody has raised their hand.
Okay.
So, yeah, nope.
Okay, thank you. We will now move to consideration of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, we will now move to public hearing motion to consider approval of a building permit application submitted by John and Vanessa Beckman for the construction of a detached garage and new driveway and driveway apron and temporary dumpster at 4816 Dorset Avenue. So today is June 1st, 2020. This is a hearing before the Town of Somerset Council for permit application number 2006G1 to consider construction of a detached garage, a new curb cut and driveway apron, and a dumpster to be kept on site during construction. We ask the residents be limited to one comment each and that they be limited to 2 minutes at a time. The town manager will call on residents by listed name or the last 4 digits of the phone number if no name is provided. When you speak, please state your name and street before you make your comment. When your time is up, a buzzer will sound and you will be asked to please finish your thought. The hearing will observe the following order. First, the Somerset Town staff will present their findings and submit for the record a report on the application under consideration. Second, the applicant will present their application. Third, the Somerset Town Council will have the opportunity to ask questions of the applicant or staff relevant to the application at hand. Fourth, other interested parties will have the opportunity to ask questions of the applicant or present comments to the council. Fifth, if necessary, the applicant will have the opportunity for rebuttal testimony, after which the public comment period of the hearing shall be completed and the record closed. Finally, the council will deliberate and discuss amongst themselves the merits of the case, the findings of fact, and conclusions. The council may make a motion on a permit decision. If any opposition is presented, the town attorney will be asked to write a decision and a permit shall not be issued before the expiration of 30 days to allow time for an appeal. If no opposition is presented, the town manager will be asked to issue a permit. We will now begin this hearing with the presentation of the Somerset staff findings and reports. Mr. Town Manager.
Hi, thank you. Let me see. So we have both Doug Lohmeyer, our building administrator, and Dr. Tolbert Feather, our town arborist, on with us. Both of them have reviewed the application for a proposed detached garage. So I will just turn it over to Doug for his report.
Good evening. The applicant is proposing to construct a detached two-car garage at the right rear of the lot. Montgomery County has issued their permit on April 27th. The applicant also proposes to relocate the existing driveway curb cut, extend the driveway to the proposed detached garage, and add additional parking spaces in the front yard. No proposed changes are proposed to the existing house. The minimum side and rear yard setbacks are 5 feet in the code, as long as the building height does not exceed 10 feet. However, the proposed detached garage will be 16.81 feet, which requires additional rear and side yard setbacks. The plan proposes that the buildings will be 14.2 feet from the rear and side yard setback, which exceeds the minimum 14-foot setback. The setbacks comply with the town code. The maximum building coverage for the lot is 8,001 square feet. The existing house and proposed detached garage will total 3,101 square feet, which complies with the town code for building coverage. The application also includes a parking plan which shows 3 parking spaces in the driveway and 3 parking spaces in front of the house on the north side of Dorset Avenue. A dumpster and temporary toilet are proposed at the location at the rear of the lot. The plan proposes to remove the existing driveway, now located approximately in the center of the lot, and relocate it onto the right side of the lot. The town driveway apron permit will be required. The plan also proposes 3 additional parking spaces to be in the driveway and 2 to 3 parking spaces on a parking pad located in the front yard. I recommend the council approve the building permit for the detached garage, the dumpster, the temporary toilet, and the new driveway apron permit for 4816 Dorset Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Does Dr. Feather have a report?
Yeah, I didn't do a report.
You.
I didn't do a report, but I have I worked with the engineer on this like 2 months ago, and they have a tree protection plan on the site plan that I approve of. It moves the pad a bit to save the trees. They want to save the cryptomeria in the back, and also has protection of the cedar in the front that they're going to build the driveway by.
Thank you, sir. We will now have the applicant's opening statement and presentation of their application. Is the applicant?
Yes, we have Mr. John Beckman here with us.
Thank you.
So John, I have unmuted you, so you are free to present your proposal. There we go. Sorry about that. There we go, John. You should be good to go now.
Hi, Matthew. Thank you, and to the council, the mayor. Thanks for entertaining our plan for a detached garage. I am not prepared with a presentation. However, I have the engineering firm Cass and my architect Martin Hidrick from Andecker Architects on the line as well. Are you expecting a formal presentation of our?
No, it's only an option,
plan?
and that's fine. If you don't wish to present anything, that's perfectly fine, and then we will go to questions if you're comfortable.
Okay, that sounds good. Just I'll make a quick comment. Aesthetically, it's the detached garage will match the home, which we were in front of this council several years ago, and we constructed and moved in 2018. We have an existing kind of parking pad in the front that has about 3 car spaces. That is just going to be moved slightly, so it's not really adding much else. So the whole thing is being shifted down a little bit to make sense with the placement of the detached garage. And it's just a pretty simple detached garage, no additional structures. But that's all I had to say, and welcome any questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. Council President Shaw, do you have questions?
I have just one question. It's actually, when I looked at what we were given, it said that to preserve the 3 cryptomeria, they'll need to be transplanted. The pad will have to be reduced, and that was Dr. Feather's comment. And it sounds like everybody has worked that out, which is great. But I don't know that I've got any documentation that shows that there is an agreement that they're going to be moving the pad, or I'm not sure what I should be looking at to be sure everybody's on the same page here.
And who would you like to answer that question?
Who can answer that question?
Okay.
I can, Marnie.
Okay.
So as a condition of permit approval, the tree protection measures mentioned by Dr. Feather could be made a condition of the permit.
Thank you.
And if
Marty,
it's not
the current site plan has moved the pad as suggested. So the current site plan was revised to move the pad.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether we actually got that. I just want to be sure everybody's on the same page so nobody winds up being disappointed later. It looks fine to me. Thank you very much.
This is sure. This is the owner. I mean, we have modified the plan to shorten the parking pad to keep it an additional 3 feet away from the cryptomerium. So the trees will be very happy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Beckman.
Okay, thank you. Council Member Zeughauser.
Sorry, Barbara, I had you on mute for a second.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Peel.
Questions?
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Panner.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sturko.
Just one question. This is a large lot, and it sounds like the detached garage fits the style and size or mass of the house very nicely. So there's not an issue of lot coverage. I was just curious about the driveway. Is that permeable or impermeable material?
We are planning on permeable. That is our plan. We haven't picked the exact materials, but we expect some sort of stone, kind of brick style with permeable type stone.
Thank you very much. That's outstanding.
Okay, thank you. Are there comments or questions from our residents or guests?
Yes.
Okay.
I have 2 residents who have indicated that they would like to make a comment or ask a question. So
okay.
The first is Matt Zaft.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, actually, one of my questions was—
Matt, tell us your name and street, remember.
Sure. Matt Zaft, Dorset Avenue.
Thank you.
One of my questions was the same one that Councilmember Sturko asked. My other question was, what, if any, study has been done as far as water runoff in regards to the driveway and the proposed construction?
And you're asking of the applicant?
I guess probably more of their engineering firm, but
okay.
yeah, of the applicant or the engineering firm.
Okay. Okay.
So let's see. We have John. You said that there's Martin Hedrick on the phone. Is that right? And I'm not seeing.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, I believe Philip Long from Cass Engineering is also on. Maybe Jeffrey Robertson from Cass. one of the two of them would be on. I'm not aware, to answer your question, Matt, I'm not aware of a runoff study, right? It's well, Montgomery County decides whether they need to impose any sort of plan for water management, and there's the level of disturbance is not anywhere near what would require that. If you heard the gentleman's report, we have the ability to build on the house on the lot up to 8,000 square feet, and with this we're slightly over 3,000, so it's very little disturbance. And I know that's part of the county permitting, and I'm aware of that because I went through all that when we built this house in 2017. If you can unmute the line, Brady Caspo.
Okay, and then maybe Doug also could address that.
Yeah, Doug, I have you unmuted. Do you have the numbers on the stormwater runoff?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Doug? Yeah. On something this small, the county typically does not require a sediment control stormwater management application. So, but Cass Engineering could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe one was applied for or required.
I don't believe we have anybody from Cass on here. We have the architect.
Yes, this is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, this is Martin Hedrick. I work for Indecker Architects. And I do not believe there was a stormwater management plan submitted to the county. I believe all the documents that were submitted are in this package. And I am also not aware, like Mr. Beckman said, of any studies that were done on rainwater or stormwater runoff on this property for this project.
Okay, so, well, thank you. Who is the next question?
John Barry had a question that he submitted to me by email. John, are you able to? I'm having trouble unmuting John, so I'll just read the email that he sent me. Let's see. He asked, in a similar vein, when the garage and driveway are constructed, what percentage of the lot, including the house, will be covered by impermeable surface? And he asked if there was a stormwater waiver that was granted by the county as part of this proposed construction.
So that could go to the owner, right?
Well, I think we've already answered those questions.
Okay.
Right? We've talked about the square footage, and we've talked about there is no stormwater report analysis, required due to the small nature of the project.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Is there anybody else that asked a question?
That was it.
Okay, thank you. So now we will turn back to the council. Is anyone prepared to make a motion?
I move that the council approve the building permit for the detached garage, the dumpster permit, the temporary toilet permit, and the new driveway apron permit for 4816 Dorset Avenue, subject to the condition that the parking pad will have been moved sufficiently to preserve the 3 cryptomeria.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Well, don't we want to add in accordance with the tree protection plan and the building administrator's plan?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, that's a friendly.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much. Congratulations to the Beckmans. Okay, we will now move to the building administrator's report. Sir, Mr.
Lohmeyer again. It's Doug Lohmeyer again. You all don't have an updated report, and hopefully when Wayne gets back, he'll be able to provide one. But I'll go over a few items with you now. At 5800 Deal, the construction is progressing daily, and they seem to be moving along pretty well. At 4602 Dorset, the construction nears completion, and I am expecting that sometime probably in June, that permit will be closed. That's for an addition at the back of the house. 4709 Dorset. The building permit's closed, but the applicant has filed for a fence permit that I believe is pending. At 4823 Dorset, the county has not closed the building permit yet, so ours is still open, but the work has been completed. At 4917 Essex, the work is progressing. At 5508 Uppingham, they're setting the roofs now, and we will be requiring a height survey within the next couple of weeks to make sure that it complies with the code. A wall check has been submitted, and that does comply with the site plan as far as the setbacks for the proposed house. 4712 Essex, they have poured the basement walls, but no work was taking place today, so I imagine they're waiting for the concrete to cure. At 4721 Cumberland, they are working at the deck at the rear of the house. At 5813 Surrey, they've completed the fence, and I'll stop by tomorrow to make sure it complies with the permit. And at 4710 Essex, when they completed that house, the fence did not meet the code. It was too tall. So the contractor is supposed to be coming back next week to lower the fence to comply with the town code height requirements. And that's all I have for my report.
Thank you, sir. Council President Shaw, do you have any questions?
I just wish that we could get a complete listing. The report that we got is very, very, very short if I printed out the right one, although I've had a little confusion about these reports. So it'd be nice to have all in one place, that whole list of properties.
Okay,
I can type something up for you.
Yeah, we'll make sure that happens. Thank you. Is that your only question?
Yes.
Thank you. Council Member Zeughauser.
No questions. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Council Member Peel.
No questions.
Thank you. Council Member Panner.
No questions. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Council Member Circo.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. The next item, public hearing motion to consider the removal of the following town trees. There's a Zelkova at 4801 Essex, and there is an ash at 4824 Dorset. Dr. Feather.
Yes, the dead one's obvious. The ash on Dorset is a very large tree, and you can see from the picture it's almost half dead, and that's probably from emerald ash borer. So I'm requesting the council approve the removal of those two public trees.
Okay, thank you. Council President Shaw, do you have any questions?
Not about those two trees, but what about the trees on Fallstone, the little new ones that look pretty dead?
Yeah, those two were container trees. They were in containers rather than balled and burlapped. So they were planted on a Thursday, and I looked at them on a Monday and had staff start watering them Tuesday. And they might still come back. I'm going to give them one more week, but otherwise they're exposed there, and they just dried out faster because they were in containers.
Okay,
so
thank you. No questions about these two trees.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Council Member Zeughauser.
No questions. Thank you, Dr. Feather.
Thank you. Council Member Peel.
No questions.
Thank you. Council Member Panner.
No questions.
Thank you. Council Member Circo.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there comments or questions from our residents or guests?
No.
Matt, did anyone raise their hand?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
Sure. I move that we remove the trees as noted in item number 9 in the June 1 agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. The next item.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Feather. Public hearing motion to consider approval of street cleaning contract with Ray Brothers not to exceed $5,175. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you. Yes, I wrote you all up a recommendation. We received 4 bids for this work. One of them was much higher than the rest, so could pretty easily be eliminated. The other three were all in the same ballpark of what we had budgeted for this year. My recommendation is to contract with Ray Brothers for spring cleaning of the streets. As I mentioned in my recommendation, I was appreciative and impressed by the care that they took in their original bid, in addition to the fact that they offer this service in Drummond and some of the other nearby municipalities. And one of the things that in particular I appreciated about the bid was that they took the time to look at our streets. To be fair, they had an incumbent advantage in the sense that they do our leaf removals in the fall, but to know that in addition to just the street needing to be swept, there's some weeds and grasses that are growing in some of the seams and cracks in the side of the street. And so they offered kind of an a la carte bid that allows the council, if we want to just go ahead with the street sweeping that we've budgeted for, or if we want to go sort of that extra mile and spend a little bit more to do the treatment of the weeds that are growing in the street. So with that, I know we have Walter Ray here, so if the council has any questions, maybe I could first turn it over to Walter to
if he wants to add anything.
Go over his proposal in greater detail for you all.
Why doesn't he do that?
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Hello to the council. I'm happy to be here. I see some familiar faces, and that's nice. Not really much to say. I've been street cleaning for, I just turned 51, and I used to do it before I turned 10 years old in the village of Drummond. So to say that I have some experience is an understatement. In the village of Drummond, they used to clean it with a person wearing a black wool tuxedo. At some point, they got a street cleaning machine, which we now currently own. Ray Brothers Landscape does. It's not that effective with the debris that's kind of out there now. So a lot of this is a combination of rakes and brooms, a lot of handwork, if you will, maybe a light blowing. And because a lot of people are at home, it's going to take a little longer because there's not vast swaths of curb right now that's unoccupied. So I think it may be this, it's probably going to be pretty involved. And I talked to Matt about our timing in terms of the term, and we're thinking that if we were given the green light, we could probably start within a week and certainly have it done before the June 30th, the end of this month. We routinely clean the village of Drummond. It's part of our agreement with them. Not only do we vacuum and recycle their leaves, but we also clean the street up there. And so it would be a continuation of that. I think we're well equipped with brooms and rakes and experience. And I'm happy to field any questions. In terms of the crack and crevice work that Matt talked about, there's different products we could use. And I'm happy to answer those. We're not necessarily going to use a Roundup product or a non-specific herbicide, but there are other ones we could use. But we do have experience with that. And within Montgomery County, you're not allowed to use some products and herbicides within lawns themselves, but within streets and within garden beds and such, they're totally permissible. And probably, as this group knows, the town has no restrictions against those in either the lawn, the beds, or the roadway. So we would be operating within the current town code as well as within Montgomery County code. And I can't say that they're explicitly maybe Tacoma Park, or maybe there's some places that have outlawed it for roadway treatment, but I can't really say. But I'm happy to take any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you very much. Thank you for attending tonight. Council President Shaw, do you have any questions?
No, but I did want to say thank you very much to Matt for getting these bids. I think one of the reasons we've got problems with weeds growing in the streets is that for 3 or 4 years, the council has put money into the budget for street sweeping, but street sweeping did not occur. And what's happened is dirt gathered in the places where we haven't done repaving, and it has allowed a lot of growth to occur. Personally, I would like us to use the least damaging kind of thing to control weeds, but I do think we need to do something to eliminate some of the destruction that's going on from the roots of the plants. That's it for me.
Thank you. Council Member Zeughauser.
Yeah, first of all, it's so nice to see you, Walter. It's been a little while.
Yeah,
it has been a little while, yeah. I do have a question because I don't know anything about this. Aside from the weeds that Marnie was talking about, is now a good time to clean streets? Aside from the fact that we haven't done it in a long time, is now a good time to do it, or would we be better off, since we haven't done it in so long and it is fairly expensive, would we be better off doing it at another time of the season? For example, how often do you clean the streets of Drummond, and when do you do that? What months do you do that?
Okay, well, typically, well, maybe atypically these days, I should say, there's usually a lot of grit and grime related to snow removal, salt and that kind of stuff. This year, we didn't have much in the way of that. So the street cleaning up there in Drummond was pretty easy. They also completed a concrete roadway project within the last several years. So the place, I mean, I'm not sure there's any cracks and crevices anywhere for anything to grow, right? And in terms of timing, I would say this, other than the fact that we're pretty damn busy, it's an ideal time because most of the spring pollen and all the stuff that falls out of the trees has already fallen, or except for some tulip poplars and such. And Tolbert, Dr. Tolbert, rather, can attest to that. You know, most of the debris is down, so you're going to get cleaning, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of residual stuff coming out of the sky. So I would say June is pretty ideal. In terms of frequency, we're probably every 2 months or so we attend to the street at Drummond, but it really depends. Like, we've already cleaned their street twice this year. And one was a little larger, and then one was just a couple weeks ago. And, you know, just depends on, we're not trying to eat off of it, and we don't think that Somerset is either. But, you know, once you get a new roadway, there's a little bit more pride about that, and they want to keep it extra nice. And it will be a little bit more challenged because the concrete meets a asphalt roadway. The concrete curbs meet an asphalt roadway. So it's not exactly apples to apples, but I would say that this would be ideal in terms of timing. You'll probably get a good value. I don't think we'll have to do anything more until we come back and address the leaf recycling that we've done in the past couple of years.
Perfect. Perfect. That was very helpful. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Peel.
I do have a question. I don't know if it's a question for Walter or for Matt, but I don't know if Walter knows, but we've had some trouble with drainage on the bridge that leads over to the swimming pool from the parking lot. And in some years, it's turned into sort of an algae covered area. And I just wonder if, Matt, if you have put that on the scope of work to have the bridge cleaned, or the parking lot for the pool and the pool driveway as part of the plan.
We did not discuss that. So that could be something that I could talk to Walter about. I know that part of it is the slats in the bridge getting filled up. So we haven't had a chance to talk about it, but that's something that we could discuss.
If you could look into that. I mean, who knows how many people are going to be going back and forth to the pool this summer, but it does seem like there's been a lot of rain and a lot of moisture, and I just would worry about people slipping, because I know people have slipped in the past on that bridge.
Okay, is that your?
That's all.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Panner.
No further questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Circo.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, do we have any questions from our residents or guests?
I do not have any raised, I do not see any raised hands.
Okay, thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
I move that we approve a street cleaning contract with Ray Brothers not to exceed $5,175.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
A second.
Okay, is there discussion?
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to ask how we're going to handle it if we decide to add to the scope of work.
Well, we could bring back something next month.
Or do we just increase the outside edge of the dollars that we permit tonight?
I thought about that, Franny, but I didn't know how much to put in, and we don't really have.
Can Walter give us any sense of how much it would be to include the pool parking lot and the bridge and the area in front of the pool?
I can't do so tonight, but I'm happy to look at it. I don't think I've crossed the bridge since it's been rebuilt, but it's not something that's, we're more than happy to go out there. I can look at it with Matt or anyone on the town staff, and we can say this is, and present something, and we could do it as July 1st as the next year's budget, or we could include it. It may not be that big of a deal. I mean, I'm not sure, but I understand your I mean a big deal in terms of labor. I don't mean, I think being
Right.
slippery bridge.
Okay, well, thank you, Walter. Councilmember Peel, we'll find out, and if necessary, we'll bring it back to the council.
I'm fine with there being a second contract if that's easier. I just wanted to ask about the process.
Okay, well, that's what we'll do. Thank you. Council
I kind of like,
hold on, Councilmember Panner, do you have any questions?
No further questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Circo?
Yeah, excuse me, yes. This proposal has two elements to it. One is the street cleaning and one is the curbside green matter control. How are we going to decide whether or not we're going to do that second part?
Well,
I mean, are we approving that second part now, or is that going to be a separate decision?
Well, why don't you need to ask the motion maker, Marnie?
well, the amount that I proposed was the $5,175, which was the total for both 1 and 2. And since no one had raised questions about 1 and 2, I went ahead with that. I actually think it would be better, thinking about Franny's comment, to raise the amount to like $5,500, but that's not an answer to your question.
But you're debating that now. So right now what's on the table is a, no, we haven't even gone to the, we
made a motion and it was seconded.
Yeah, so you're discussing the motion.
So I'd like to amend my motion.
Okay,
So I'd like to amend the motion to have the not to exceed be $5,500.
okay, is there a second to the amendment? Okay, thank you. Is there discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Now a consideration of the original motion as amended. Is there further discussion? All those in favor? Did someone say something? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you very much, Walter. Okay. The next item, public hearing motion to consider creation of commission to study stormwater, tree canopy, and building code in the town of Somerset. So before I turn this over to Council Member Circo, who requested this to be on the agenda, let me just give you a little brief history, which was when the code, we spent years amending the code. During that period, we put asterisks on certain parts that required further discussion. Then when we were trying to figure out how we were going to review those, I put together a subcommittee of Councilmember Peel and Councilmember Circo. One result of that subcommittee was a proposal that Councilmember Circo had to amend the code, but it did not have support by any other council member. So I suggested to him that, well, I think we talked about it, and I said, this isn't going to pass. So he came up with the idea, let's do it, let's study it. So then I said to the council, well, you know, I've had these kind of experiences many times. So I said, I will come back with a proposal to establish a study committee. And that's what I did after last month's meeting. Then apparently, since it was my understanding that everybody on the council supported this idea, and because it was timely, Councilmember Circo introduced it, so to speak, as a resolution to establish this committee. So now I will turn it over to him.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Right, so this is the fruition of a fairly long history as the council has wrestled with some issues in the town, and particularly with regards to building permits. And I'm really excited at the step we're taking here, sort of a proactive step to get some of the details, get some of the data and the facts, and have a committee try to assess those facts and come up with some recommendations for the council to consider. With that as background, what I was hoping here is that the council would approve the creation of this Stormwater Management and Protection of the Tree Canopy Committee to study stormwater, tree canopy, and building code in the town of Somerset, as listed in the agenda. I prepared a draft mission statement. I forwarded by email to Matt just a little while ago. It's a minor tweak on what was in the mayor's, what the mayor has suggested in an informal email a little while ago, just trying to focus it in a little bit more as a mission statement. So with your forbearance, I'll just read it. It's about 3 sentences long. To perform a comprehensive review of current county and town laws and administrative policies concerning permits as they may impact the health, safety, general welfare, and enjoyment of residents, particularly with regards to stormwater management and the tree canopy. To identify problems and concerns specific to Somerset. To review a variety of legislative and administrative solutions to such problems. To evaluate the impact of such solutions on budget, staffing, and property values. To make recommendations which would be most effective in Somerset. And then my recommendation would be that if we approve the formation or creation of this committee, that this committee finalize the mission statement, this draft mission statement, and also prepare a charter for approval by the committee. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Council President Shaw, do you have questions?
No, I don't. Can you circulate around, though, the sentence that you substituted for the first sentence, Steve? Or did you already?
I sent it to Matt. Can you forward it? You probably have better.
I wonder if we could put it in the chat so that.
That's a good idea.
I can do that, or share my screen, or whatever, however you'd like me to do it.
Why don't you put it in the chat so that in case there will be public comment on that?
Sure thing. Okay. Bear with me one moment. Okay.
And we're running so much ahead of schedule. Maybe we could get Matt.
Hold on. Okay, Council President Shaw, do you have any other questions?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Zeughauser.
Yeah, I hadn't seen the mission statement. I guess, Marnie, you have seen it?
Well, in the proposal that was circulated May 5th, most of what in the 5th paragraph.
I guess I'd like to wait to have Matt post it in the chat. I think that was a good idea. And then I do have some questions, and I'm not sure who should answer these. But the first one is this a permanent committee, or is this going to disband after the report by the next fiscal year, which is, I guess, when we're looking to have this all completed by?
That's a good question. Mr. Town Attorney, wouldn't that be put in the resolution?
That's right. I think it's anticipated that this would be an ad hoc committee, and the charter could specify the expected deliverable, and that the committee would terminate after the deliverable is provided to the council.
Exactly.
So I would ask that that be a part of this. And then my next question is, because I think there's been so much confusion and overlap, is how would this new committee, and again, I haven't focused on the mission statement, Steve, so I apologize for that. How would it interact with the PNRC and the Environment Committee? And would they work together, or are they all working separately? And whose voice will be the loudest, and how will all that be then presented to the council? I'm finding it kind of confusing because there does seem to be a lot of overlap, and that makes me question the committee a little bit.
Sure, can I take that?
Yeah, this is your.
Okay. So there certainly is an overlap of interests with the Parks and Natural Resources Committee and the Environment Committee, maybe some of the other committees. There's a noise protection, but I think that this new committee that I'm proposing would be in the lead. It would have a dedicated group of subject matter experts from the town. It would have a modest budget allocated to it, and it would be short-lived. So its purpose would be to gather the relevant data on a number of topics of interest that various residents of the town have expressed questions about, and then to dig into those questions, analyze them, and come up with some recommendations. I guess they might seek comment or input from other committees, but I would see this committee as being in the lead on this issue of relevance.
Well, I have to say that causes me some concern because if we're establishing committees that are going to supersede other committees, that makes me worry, because then what's the purpose of the Environment Committee, who has been studying stormwater for years? And what's the purpose of the PNRC that has been studying the canopy for years? And if all of a sudden we're going to have one committee that, as you said, is going to take the lead on all this, and they might seek comments from the other committees, that is worrisome to me as a community. I would hope that we would be a community that would work together, that would gather the information from the other committees who have worked so hard on these topics for so long, rather than just establishing a new committee and saying, well, we're the new committee, we're taking the lead, and we want the town to listen to us. That's certainly not my style. And I have grave concerns about working like that within a community. Okay, is there some way that you can articulate a way that why I should not worry about that, Steve?
I am surprised at your expressions of worry. The Environment Committee, for example, yes, they've worked on this for years, and they've presented material information to the town and to the council for years, but they have generally not been respected necessarily as representing the entire town or as having dug into the details. And we're also talking about multiple issues here. So it would seem appropriate to have a fresh look from a respected group of individuals that Jeffrey would nominate and the council would consider and approve, with an outside consultant who has done similar sorts of studies and assessments supporting jurisdictions that neighbor us, to help us get through this, because otherwise I don't see us making any progress.
Well, let
me just add one thing, Councilor.
I have a question.
Okay. I was going to answer that too.
Well, I'd like Steve to answer. Okay. why do you not want to work with the PNRC and the Environment Committee? Why should this committee not work with them?
They should work with them. I do not mean to suggest they would be working at odds or in secret. But I think that the overarching issues are broader than any of those individual committees.
Well, I have to say I'm really struggling with that because the PNRC has been working. I've been the liaison for quite some time, and they have really struggled with the tree canopy in town, and I know the Environment Committee has really struggled with stormwater. So I don't know. I like the idea of the committees working together and not having this one committee take the lead. But that's just I think bringing the community together is so very important these days.
Absolutely.
And the way you're suggesting this, that this committee is going to take the lead, and in your words, they might seek comments from the other committees. Okay. That does not sit well with me.
Okay, I apologize for saying that they might seek inputs. That's all to be determined as we figure out the charter, as we move ahead. The council has to approve the charter. I want this to succeed. I want this to succeed for the entire town. I want the residents to be involved. I want the committees to be involved and engaged. But we need to gather some data, and we have been unable to do that with our current structure. This is a way forward. Do you have any other suggestions?
Yeah, I think people working together actually brings much more success than people at odds with one another. Yes, that is my suggestion.
So Barbara, I'm the liaison to the Environment Committee. I work very closely with them. I work very close with people in the PNRC. I think we're working together.
Okay, that wasn't how you represented it initially.
I apologize then. I was trying to simplify things or summarize. I'm just trying to get this started so we can move ahead.
Yes, I would like to move ahead, but I don't want to press it through just to check it off the list. And I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Peel.
I have a couple of questions. I guess I didn't have Steve's mission statement, but I did have Jeffrey's printed out, and I read that, but I had some questions rather over the composition of the committee, and it seems a little daunting to me to think that we could get 9 members, including a real estate professional, somebody with expertise in engineering and stormwater management, a land use attorney, an expert on trees, and 5 other citizens. So I just kind of wondered, given what we know about, in some cases, how difficult it is to get people to serve on committees and to commit to the time that's involved, I'd like to hear from Jeffrey a little bit about how he sees putting that together, first of all. And then secondly, I guess, we sort of rubber stamp Jeffrey's nominations for committees. People are interested in volunteering. They communicate that to Jeffrey. The council, for the most part, has no issues with the composition of committees, but this seems to be something where I guess I'd like to know sort of whether there will be a process to evaluate what people would be bringing to this committee and whether they had any sort of preconceived notions about how things should be, and if there would be an opportunity for us to sort of see more than one candidate from each of these categories, or if you're basically going to have to look around and find, one tree expert and one land use attorney and so on.
Okay, I'll be happy to answer that. First of all, I have a lot of experience with this kind of thing, and those are all excellent questions. Your first question about finding people to be on it, Well, already I would say more than 9 people have volunteered. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. The second thing is,
okay. But again,
they have already volunteered, but I'm not planning. They've volunteered, but I haven't said I'm going to nominate them.
Have you gotten volunteers from these categories of people that you've identified?
Well, first of all, what I've told everybody that's volunteered is the council hasn't even established the committee yet. And I haven't even come up with a way in which I'm going to advertise people to be on the committee to see who's going to even apply. And so, but your question was, is it going to be a challenge to find people? And my answer, I don't think so. Now, one thing I was planning to do along the model of a committee that I was involved with when I worked at the DC Council was, what I was planning to do was going to ask each council member to nominate one person to be on this committee. And then the other 4 I would nominate. And the other thing is that I don't think that it really matters what anybody's preconceived notions are. The only qualification to be on this committee is that you have the time and you have an open mind about studying the problem.
I agree with that.
We will never be able to find.
Okay.
It should not be it wouldn't matter to me if everybody on the committee was totally against changing the laws. It doesn't matter. The purpose of this committee is to study and review the laws.
I know, but Jeffrey, in your proposal, and I understand that this is what Steve has signed on to, you specify that you're looking for one real estate sales professional, an expert in engineering and stormwater management, a land use attorney, and an expert in trees.
Right. That would be my suggestion. But
and those are going to be people who live in Somerset.
The council, yes, but the council, that is my proposal. You have an opportunity to amend that now. If you don't think that that is going to work, then amend it to make it 9 members of the community, whatever you want to do. This is just a proposal.
I mean, I think it's a good idea to have a degree of expertise and a variety of perspectives, but I'm just a little bit concerned that it's going to be very difficult to find those specific types of people.
I don't think so, but you can this is just a proposal. This is not a debate about this proposal. This is a discussion of the proposal, and if you don't like that aspect of it, change it. Maybe you think it should be more people.
Okay, we can move on to my next question. I'm not proposing changing it right now. I just was registering my concern that you would be able to find these people.
This is your time to ask questions.
Okay, my other question is this, and this may be a little bit more of a general question, which is that I've been concerned lately about the use by committees of by our committees asking our town attorney directly for legal advice. And I mean, at a very basic level, we have legal expenses to think about. So I'll just put a pin in that and move off it. Secondly, we typically require permission from the council or the mayor before we ask our town attorney for legal advice. And after we get legal advice, unless it's on a personnel matter, that is typically shared with the entire council. And my concern would be that a committee like this would necessarily need to work with our town attorney and get legal advice, which would have, expenses associated with that, which could be budgeted for. But I would be concerned as to whether or not the council was in constant communication in terms of getting that legal advice as it was being given out. Because I have been concerned about this recently because of the review of the drafts of the welcome letter and the sense that I've had, which may be mistaken, that the committees or other volunteers who are interested in the projects were communicating directly with the town attorney and that the advice that he was giving was either not shared or that we were not even told that those requests have been made. So I don't want to be.
No, that's a good question.
I just think we have to be a lot clearer about how that works.
That's a great question.
This committee needs to have a very clear set of rules.
That's a very good question, and that is why, which hasn't been, I don't know why this hasn't been mentioned, but you know, part of the proposal that I gave to the council was that this committee would be staffed by Chris Jakubiak, who our town attorney had, and I'll let him talk about him. And I didn't get a chance to talk to Chris this week. I mean, I never reached him. But and I'll let the town attorney discuss this. But Chris Jakubiak guided several other municipalities in our area along this kind of study. And let me have the town attorney elaborate on that.
But before you ask Ron I wanted to ask you about that specifically, Jeffrey, because before Ron explains what he can do, I would like to know whether, I mean, typically the council has an opportunity to vote as to whether or not to hire consultants. We did that for the tennis courts when we renovated the tennis courts. We've done it for architects and so on. And I would want to know whether we are looking at more than a consultant.
You know, that is a very good question. And I think maybe that before the council votes on this, that information should be provided. So I think that's a very good question, because that would have been my intent.
Well, I mean, I don't even know how far you've gone along this path in terms of engaging this person.
We haven't, we're just getting information. Let me let the town attorney address that, because I got the idea from him.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just let me note that under current protocol, I do not give advice directly to committees or residents or individual council members. The current protocol is that I will only do work at the request of the manager, mayor, or the council by majority vote.
Okay.
So the advice I've given to date on this matter has been, you know, at the request of either the mayor or Matt, and I don't think it's been that much.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
In 2006, when the Maryland legislature expanded the building regulation authority of the municipalities in the regional district, including the town of Somerset, several towns took advantage of that, and some of them hired an urban planner to help them go through the review of contemporary issues and help them decide how the new authority should be implemented and what additional regulations, if any, should be adopted. And Chris Jakubiak helped Town of Chevy Chase, Martin's Additions, Chevy Chase View, and maybe some others. And he's a resource that's available. You don't have to select him or anyone. You know, there are others that you could select, but he does have experience in this area with municipalities, specifically in the regional district. So, you know, there might be some benefit to considering him if you decide to go that route with an urban planner assisting you. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
That was I think a key part of my proposal, and so I'm glad that Councilmember Peel has raised these questions, and I think that before that the council should consider this study commission is that they understand the input that we provided by the. I think that the best way for this study to succeed is to be guided by a consultant that has had experience in doing this project. That is what that's the difference between what the PNRC. So I would say that for tonight, I would not recommend that the council approve this without that added element. So, but anyway, go. I
guess I'd still like to understand. Are you saying that hiring an urban planner, possibly this person is essentially a condition of forming this committee, or are you forming the committee and then asking them to decide whether or not they want to hire an urban planner?
My proposal is that the council approve the study that I thought this was the best vehicle to accomplish this study. But I don't think that it can be accomplished without professional advice, and that's pretty much it. But
the budgeted amount that you've mentioned in your message, is that for the urban planner, or is there an additional?
That would be well. That was just the estimate that I threw out there. But since I haven't spoken to Chris, and since I don't like the council to approve anything without, a contract from a vendor, I would say that let's continue this discussion tonight, and then we're going into a hearing, and then I can bring that back next month.
Okay, my final question, and I've raised this before, is, and I think this is an important factor before we vote as to whether or not this committee takes shape, is will there be a town council liaison appointed to this committee or not?
Well, that would be up to the council to decide whether they want. And I don't know, I guess Marnie could answer that.
I really don't think I can tonight. I've been really engaged by the questions that are asked, which only lead me to a whole lot of other questions. So when we come back next time around, I'll have some more questions for you.
Well, I would just note that the code does require a council liaison for this type of committee.
Okay, good. So
what part of the code, Ron, what are you citing?
Section 13.5.
So that's the answer. Yes, Councilmember Peel, there would be a liaison to that committee.
Okay, those are the questions I have for now. I'm like Marnie. I feel like this is raising more questions than answers.
That's the purpose of good legislating. So don't apologize for that. Thank you, Councilmember Panner. Do you have any questions?
I echo the concerns that Marnie and Barbara and Franny are raising. I would like to see a proposal to do this. I think it's super, super important. But when I do a committee like this to try to get at a set of issues, I'm really cognizant about a few really, really important issues. One of them is, what's the purpose of the committee? And what I had understood, the purpose of the committee was to find facts. And one of the things that I think we should think about is, how will we be able to ensure this is a fact-finding committee rather than a sort of advocacy group? And I think the mission statement mushes those two things together and suggests that we should push forward proposals out of this committee. And quite frankly, I thought what we were trying to find out was a set of facts. I mean, these are super profound decisions. I know there's an extraordinarily vocal group of people in the committee, in the community, who feel very strongly about the direction we should go. I hear that and I know that. But I feel at sea as to what facts we want to find at this point and how we're going to do that. And even the selection of experts is an extremely important question, because when we set up in my world, when you set up a committee, there's a debate about who the experts are, because they have baggage, they have preconceived notions, they have records. It's a very important set of considerations. And I just feel like we've put forward a mission statement that blurs data collection and advocacy. I'm not even comfortable with the verbiage that we use. I'm not sure what we're studying is stormwater management or water flow vis-a-vis the community from one yard to another, and how we want to articulate that. And this just feels like, just even the fact that we get a mission statement that has been amended and is shown to us in a chat window on probably one of the most important things we're going to decide as a town does not feel like good governance to me. And what we need is a deliberative process where we have a fact-finding mission. And that's kind of what I would like to do. Maybe, Mr. Mayor, you got there, and maybe Mr. President, you got there tonight, and we're all in violent agreement, which is great.
Well,
but those are my, concerns.
Okay, well, I think those are all excellent issues, but ultimately, when the committee is approved, and I won't ask the council to approve it tonight since we don't have a key element here. Then this is just the proposal. It can be amended. So whatever you're not clear about in the mission statement, you can make amendments to it.
So just
as easy as that. This is not something this is a proposal that is up for consideration. It can be amended.
Well, I applaud your effort to do it, and I think it's very important to do. I would like to get to a point where I didn't feel like we were just pushing something through with the safety valve that down the road we could amend it. I'd really like to have.
It's not gonna be approved until it's amended, until a majority of the council is comfortable with it, or you don't approve it. So
I misunderstood you. That makes sense to me. I thought you were suggesting we pass something and then
No. I just said that I don't recommend that the council approve this tonight, particularly because we don't have the key element of the who's going to guide the committee through this study. So, okay. Did you have any other questions, Councilor Hanna?
Just one request. As we start, if the critical element is the consultant that we're going to hire, I would suggest that we have a vigorous process of interviews, and we have a series of candidates that represent different experiences.
Well, the reason that I recommended Mr. Jakubiak is because he has successfully led these kind of studies in other municipalities, and like every other we don't have a procurement policy here. So what I would suggest is that we get a proposal from Mr. Jakubiak for the council to consider next time.
Well, Jeffrey, I wouldn't do that because the problem is I've gotten mixed feedback on him. And
okay, so the council, well, that's fine. The council can recommend anybody else.
But it would be nice if as part of this, the town manager, the town attorney, and you, if you wanted to, or Marnie, or Madam President, if she wanted to, put forth a slate of candidates. I mean, if the request to the council members is that we all go out and look for civil engineering consultants, I guess we can do that. But that doesn't really feel right to me either. I don't feel like I should bring forward and I shouldn't have said anything bad about Chris. I take all that back. I know it's a public forum. I'm sure he's a wonderful professional. I'm sure he does outstanding work. I just know that it is important that we take the time to interview and get to know his work rather than just saying it is an acknowledged fact because he did something for other municipalities. And typically, whenever you're interviewing for an important position, even if Matt is a fantastic town manager and he was an acknowledged successful town manager in a nearby zone for us, we still went through a search process because we wanted to make sure we got good candidates. So I'm not advocating anything that I consider to be radical or obstructive. I think it is just good governance, and that's kind of what I'm pushing for. And if the request is that governance come from the council members, that we bring forward our candidates and run that process, we could set that up. But that doesn't feel right to me. I love your guys' leadership on these matters and would encourage it to continue.
Okay, thank you. We will explore other consultants to consider. Okay, Councilmember Circo, you'll have a chance. Councilmember Circo.
Thank you. So this great discussion. I'm glad to hear the feedback and inputs of all my colleagues on the council. I'd just like to assure folks that this, I guess I feel like we've been in a bit of a chicken and the egg situation. It's tough to get going until you start to get something moving along. The idea here was not to have this new group starting to collect facts and data and spending money next week. The idea was to come to agreement as a council that this was an important area that the town should work on. And with that concurrence and with agreement on a rough mission statement, something that gave some guidelines to what we wanted to accomplish, the mayor could then propose a slate of candidates to serve on this committee. And this committee could then draft a charter that we would then review. Nothing would actually happen until we had a confirmed charter and we had a budget that we agreed to.
I think that the council would confirm the charter, and the council would approve the consultant and the budget.
Right. So
move forward.
So I guess we just need to get some of those steps completed before we bring it back to the council, which is fine. We can do that.
Okay, thank you. Second round, Council President Schall, I think you had some more questions.
I actually didn't have questions the first round. I was very happy to listen to what others had to say because it really triggered a lot of thoughts for me. First of all, really wasn't even clear to me how you distinguish between an ad hoc committee that is around some and this one, which is only around some too, and whether or not this was going to be subject to all the rules of committees and whether it was going to be subject to the Open Meetings Act and so on. So that's been a useful part of the discussion.
This would be a full committee.
Well, when you say full, you're saying it will be
subject to all of what you just said. Open
right, that wasn't necessarily clear. And I think that it'll be good now with the additional input here to think about the mission statement as having a more completely, think about the roles of the Parks and Natural Resources Committee and the Environment Committee relative to this committee. I agree with Morris about the notion of how you go about selecting key staff people for committees. And so this was all kind of a surprise to me that there was somebody that had sort of been handpicked already. So I would really advocate that we look more carefully at what's going to be the best way going forward. There are 21 municipalities in our county, and there might be other communities who've used people to help them different from the person who was committed, who's being considered. Not that this person might not be good, but I think it's good to have a kind of an open mind about this. I think that covers most of it, but I think there's a useful initial conversation, but definitely we need more fleshing out of this entire proposal.
Yes, definitely. Councilmember Zerghauser, do you have it on second round?
No, I just want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing us to talk about it and not trying to push it through this evening, because I think each council member has raised some very important questions and we're just not at this point ready to move forward. In addition to that, we need to look at the cost of this. I gather in the budget line item, we have what, $5,000?
$5,000, that's right.
This will clearly cost more than that. So we'd also have to take a look at the budget and see exactly how we're going to pay for this.
Right, definitely. That's why I said a few minutes ago that it's not ready to be considered tonight.
Yes, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Peel, do you have any further questions?
I do. I guess one of them is just sort of a comment, and that is that over the many years that I spent working with the council directly and with Ron on our code review, I mean, I think I could count on one hand the number of times that a resident came and participated with the council in our open sessions on going through the code, basically page by page, which of course was disappointing to me after spending so much time and energy on it. But I think what it says, frankly, is that there are a lot of people in the town who don't see the need to come and look over our shoulders for this because they're basically okay with how things are working. And I don't really know how we find out who those people are, or whether, you know, this forum maybe in fact is more engaging for people since they don't have to come to the town hall. But again, you know, we don't have a committee devoted to people who think things are working as, you know, basically okay. So I guess that's just one point. And then secondly, I guess I just also want to ask, you know, when we hire consultants, we oftentimes get their advice directly at the council level. And I'm just kind of wondering why we need a 9-person filter for this. You know, if we hired an urban planner and gave him a scope of work and asked him to study the regulatory structures that other municipalities had adopted and to give us some sense of apples to apples comparison for size of municipality and so on, I guess I'm just wondering why we can't get that report delivered directly to the council and why we need to go through a study group on it. So you know, I guess I'd just like to ask that tonight. When Jeffrey said that he felt that he had the approval of the council to go forward with this suggestion to make the committee, you know, I guess maybe I would like to say that my approval was a little bit lukewarm, and this is kind of why, is that if there's an urban planner who's been hired to give us advice on this, I'd like to hear from that person, and I don't want to have that advice filtered by 9 well-meaning residents of the community. I'd like to hear it at the council level and be able to ask questions about it. And so I think there's a lot more to be considered here. I don't necessarily have a problem with creating a committee, but I have a lot more questions than I had even when we started talking about this. So I'm not comfortable with where we are on this right now. And unfortunately, I'm worried that we're going to move ahead quickly on this in order to, you know, as Steve asked, just get started, which I sympathize with. But, you know, I don't have a sense of the purpose or shape or even scope or oversight of this. That's all.
Franny, could you ask the mayor to respond to that? I think that's a super good question. Why do we need a committee? Why can't the consultant just respond directly to the council? I never thought of that, and I think that's a very valid question.
Well, why would you? Well, I just made a proposal to the council on how they could achieve a study. Do you not want to have citizens? You know, that's the way governments function. With
citizen involvement could be the council.
This isn't a debate tonight, so Council President.
Well, I just wondered what you thought about Franny's comment.
Well, I mean, we're a government that is assisted by a committee structure. It's a formal way to get citizen input and to contribute to the functioning of the government.
Yes, but so are surveys. I mean, you know.
Okay. So this isn't a debate now. This is just a discussion of this proposal. So it's okay. Council President Shaw, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to add that if there were a right answer for our communities, we'd all have the same code. And I think the reason for the committee participation is because what the changes that one community might make based on what an urban planner has to say might not be what another community wants to have based on how it sees its own community. So the urban planner can bring expertise, but doesn't necessarily bring the character of the community that he or she is dealing with. That's my answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way you know, I'm sort of surprised by the question because that's the way governments function. It's the way governments function.
But you're not talking about elected officials. You're talking about 9 appointed volunteers, which I mean, of course, we're all volunteers.
Well, you know, that's how governments function. That's how governments function. So I can't answer that. So
okay,
if you don't, well, okay, so then vote against the committee ultimately. You know, that's what
I thought we weren't voting tonight.
We are no.
We're not. We're not. Okay, I think unless anyone has more questions, it's time. This is a public hearing. So, Matt, are there any comments or questions from our residents or guests?
Yes. First person who raised their hand was Robin Barr.
Yep. Hi. I'm Robin Barr. I see I'm unmuted now. Essex Avenue. I'm also chair of the Environment Committee. And there was a lot of discussion of the role of an Environment Committee and PNRC in this. We had actually had a bit of discussion on the Environment Committee around this one, and we did see some overlap. And what we are suggesting is that liaisons to the committee, if it's approved, be appointed from the Environment Committee and from PNRC. So they would be non-voting members of this committee who would provide background on where the Environment Committee is and what we've already been over to share with this committee. And that was the thought. Thanks.
Thank you. Matt, you're timing everybody, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay, good. Is there anybody next?
Yes, I'm going to give Paige Whitley an opportunity. She had posted a question. Paige, I don't know if you wanted to expound on what you had posted or not. The unmute. Oh, sorry. There we go.
Hi there. I just wanted clarification because when I read the proposal that was put on the main chat, it seemed that there was an emphasis on administrative and legislative possibilities that this committee would be focused on. And I, perhaps through my own ignorance, wasn't certain how much of that was already part of the PNRC and environment committees to date, or if this was indeed a slightly more specific purpose of the new committee. So maybe some clarification, maybe Robin can answer that or somebody.
Well, I don't know if that's your comment, but would any council member like to respond?
Well, if I can just
maybe yes, Steve should respond. This is his proposal.
Yeah, I just suggest the idea is that this study group or this committee would be taking a broader look at the issues affecting the town in the areas of stormwater, runoff, tree canopy, basically the health, safety, and enjoyment of Somerset by all the residents of Somerset, and looking at the building codes and trying to dig up some facts and details for analysis. And at least my thought was there's going to be a lot of work here. There's going to be a lot of data that has to be compiled, a lot of facts to be considered and analyzed, and the costs and benefits of recommendations to be considered. So I thought that the traditional approach is you have a committee set up that can focus on that, as opposed to having everything come directly to the council. But as an alternative, you know, what Franny suggested, that might work, just have the consultant report directly to us, but I think that could be burdensome on the council.
Okay, thank you. Matt, are there any other?
There were no other raised hands, no other questions.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. We will work on bringing back a more complete proposal for the future. The next item, public hearing motion, consideration of proposed town welcome letter / notice as recommended by the Environment Committee, PNRC, and Mayor's Ad Hoc Advisory Committee. So let's go over some of the history of this agenda item again. So some months ago, a group of residents wrote a letter to me and the council on ways to improve the building application process without having to make any changes to the code. And one of the ideas that resulted from, I met with some of those residents. And one of the ideas that came out was to come up with a notice, which has now also been called a welcome letter, that would provide information to anyone the real intent of this was a letter/notice that would provide information to anyone, any town resident who is anticipating building a new structure or building an addition to a structure. It would sort of be a notice of what they should, sort of a crib sheet on what they should be looking at in the code in terms of what specific requirements there are to the town. And it has resulted in a letter/notice that has been worked on by 3 committees. And with that, I've asked the chair of the PNRC, Kristen Khanna, to just briefly present the result of the work of these committees.
Hi, everyone. So this is a draft letter, or what you've received is a draft letter that was somewhat misnamed due to a misunderstanding that was largely on my part, and which I trust will be corrected as it's considered. It perhaps should not be called a welcome letter, but I'd like to think of something a little less daunting than a public notice. But it was worked on and approved by 3 committees. So the Mayor's Ad Hoc Committee, as he mentioned, the PNRC, and the Environmental Committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me also add that at the last meeting, Councilmember Peel asked some very good questions, legal questions about this document, and it has been reviewed by the town attorney. And when it comes to her, is everybody still there? I see Kristen's frozen.
No, that's her background.
I think she just turned off her.
Oh, cool. Okay,
I
cool.
turned off my video.
I was worried that something happened. Okay, so at the last, at the work session, Councilmember Peel raised some very excellent questions, legal questions about the notice, and the town attorney has provided a document for the council. So I assume that when it's her turn, she can raise some of these issues. Again, like with the committee, the study committee, this is a proposal now before the council that I hope somehow can be approved, maybe not tonight, but hopefully tonight or in the future, that will pass the test of everyone and will achieve the mission that it's a valid mission. So with that, I will turn it over to Council President Schall for questions.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I want to be sure I'm looking at the correct letter because I think the package had 2 letters in it. So
Matt, can you?
Sure. I've labeled the one, the proposed and recommended final, proposed and recommended by committees, pre-building design welcome letter to Somerset notice, final ad hoc committee. So that's the one that has been reviewed by the committees and was submitted for consideration. I also included a working draft that a resident had offered to send to council members. I don't believe that is the letter that is under consideration, and I can let Paige Whitley discuss what that is if you want me to turn it over to her.
No, I
was just erring on the side of giving you all the information.
That letter, Council President Schall, that letter that Paige Ridley wrote was, she made some recommendations in response to, and I'm sure she's going to be speaking during the public hearing, but it's my understanding that she drafted that in response to the concerns that were expressed by Councilmember Peel.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure I was clear. Okay, because
but what I placed on the agenda was the compromise draft that was worked on by the 3 committees.
Okay, well, I think at the council meeting, Franny raised some questions, but I think other council members raised questions. And from a process perspective, I received the residents' working draft mid-month, in which she asked the entire council and the mayor and manager if they had any comments that she could incorporate, because I think she was thinking that what had been at the last meeting had raised a number of questions, and in working with that draft, she thought she could answer those questions and have something that would be easier for the council to say, this seems about right. So I guess it's now that I'm clear which one we're talking about, I don't think I have another question. But I was confused by the process this month.
Yes, I'm sorry for the confusion. Thank you. Council member Zeughauser.
I'd like to yield my time to Franny because I think she had some very good questions.
Okay, we can come back to you. Council member Peel.
Okay, just given what we've talked about in terms of drafts, I just want to make sure that I'm talking about the right document, the one that says, welcome to the town of Somerset, what to consider before planning construction. Is that the document that we're talking about tonight?
That's the only one I printed out beyond the...
That's the one.
That's correct.
That's the one that's on the agenda, correct. That's the one that's the one that was reviewed by the town attorney.
And that's the same one we saw last month.
Yeah.
This is the one we had at the May meeting, right?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
That's the one that, at your request, was reviewed by the town attorney.
At my request?
Remember you
I thought that you just told me that he had already reviewed it.
No. You remember you made comments?
Yes.
And those were given. The comments that you made were then given to the town attorney, and then he responded in a document.
Well, I'm aware of all that, and I'm just not exactly sure what you're expecting me to do tonight. I'm happy to revisit my comments on this draft if that's what you're looking for.
Yes, I think that what you need to do is ask your questions about the draft based on what you learned from the town attorney.
Well, what I learned from the town attorney, what I thought was legal advice that had been given to the council.
Yes, but you can ask questions based on that advice, because you had questions about the document, right? So ask those questions.
Okay. All right. I mean, I had questions about the document, but I guess I'll back up a step, which is to say that I began my comments by saying that I do not think we need to send this letter out. I do not think we need to draft it, and I do not think we need to provide it as an official town document. I don't know if we're at that stage of talking about it or not, because you seem to want my sort of drafting notes, and I guess I'd like to, I'm happy to go over them, but I'd like to make it clear at the outset that I'm not in favor of preparing this letter.
I know, but I think what you need to do is raise the issues again that you raised last month, and then talk about the advice that you got from the town attorney based on that.
Well,
okay.
The advice was privileged.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where to go with that.
Let me ask the town attorney how we can go about this so that the public can get the benefit of your review, Mr. Town Attorney. How can we go about that?
Well, the town council can decide whether the attorney-client privilege should be waived on this subject matter, or less drastically, individual council members can say, without disclosing the attorney advice, based on the attorney advice we've received, I believe we should do this or that.
Okay, is that helpful, Franny?
It is helpful to me.
I know it's taking you back to law school.
This is what my hair looked like in law school.
Right.
All right. I think I will focus then on my first point, which is that my understanding of the town attorney's advice is that a better approach would be to identify, if any, areas where our laws are unclear and try to find ways to clarify them. My feeling on this is that people who are contemplating renovations in the town, if they're residents of the town, they're well aware that we have a town code. And if they are new residents coming into the town, they are working with relatively high-end real estate professionals and architects and builders who are also well aware, or should be, that we have a town code. And once they start to look at that, if they have questions about it, they can contact our town office. And that process, in my view, works. So I think preparing a welcome letter is complicated and unnecessary.
Can I ask you one thing? So what I want to ask you is, so when you say that when they contemplate a project and they call the town office, that was my original objective in having some kind of notice so that we would know. So right now when they call, someone says, I want to buy a property in some, this is just one example. I'll get a call, or Matt will get a call from a realtor or a prospective purchaser. I want to buy this property, but I'm considering making changes. What do I need to know? What will I be able to take down that tree? Will I be able to put in a swimming pool? So instead of going jabber, trying to escape from saying something but not being friendly, it would be nice if we had some kind of notice that says, if you're contemplating building, making a new structure or an addition, here are the crib notes from the code.
But Jeffrey, all right, I guess I understand your point, and I can see how that would be convenient for people in the town office. However, my objection to that is that this is a cherry-picked set of issues.
Okay.
This does not cover all of the things that our town code regulates. That's my first answer.
Okay, good.
My second answer is this, that nobody from the town office, the town manager's office, should be representing one way or the other how the council will act.
That's absolutely
so if somebody calls the town office and says, will I be able to take down this tree? The town manager has to say, I can't answer that. We have a town code. I recommend that you speak to your own real estate professionals and your own attorney and go over it with them. And if you have any problems finding it, I can help you find it. Right. Beyond that, I don't think anybody in the town office should be making any kind of assurances or representations about how the council will act.
That's absolutely right.
So that's my objection to the concept of the letter. And if you want my comments on how it's drafted at the moment, I think some of them, have been absorbed into the draft that Paige Whitley prepared. So, I guess we're not talking about that one tonight. I'm not sure whether
let
go
me
into detail on the line by line on this, but my concept is the same, which is that these are cherry-picked issues that are important to people right now in the town, but they do not cover all of the areas of regulation that the town code covers. They leave out important things that have to do with building safety, community, keeping the community clean, following other rules. And why would we have a list like this for people who already live in the town? And how are you going to give this letter to people who, under our code right now, all they have to do is show up in our office with a completed Montgomery County building permit in order to get onto our agenda? They don't have to come to us first. As it's written right now, they have to come to us with a completed building permit application, which means they have already gone through the Montgomery County process, including stormwater waivers and so on. So I don't know how you're going to scrape in those people and give them this letter before they go through that process.
Okay. Very good question. And when I emailed you this week and I told you that I had an idea, let me tell you what it is. One of the really nice things that Paige Woodley did in her research was that she discovered a document that Chevy Chase Village uses along this same line. And the town attorney is aware of that document. So could you please, Mr. Town Attorney, talk about that document and how it might be possible for us to have a similar document for our town?
Sure. So in addition to the code, Chevy Chase Village publishes a guidance document that's presented in layman's terms, describing all the requirements of the code. So the town of Somerset could do something similar and prepare a document that's sort of a companion to the code that provides a guide to applicants on how they should submit their permit applications, what information is required, and what substantive regulations are on the books. And that could be presented in a holistic approach, addressing everything in the code and not just issues that are contained in this draft.
So I want to thank Paige Woodley for bringing this to my attention, because I think that this could be a solution that everyone would be happy with, and it would solve a problem that obviously existed in the village, and it is why they created that document. So that's the answer I wanted to give you, Franny.
I guess, okay, I understand that. And, as somebody who's spent a lot of time reading the code, I do appreciate that most people don't like to read codes. But look, I'm just not sure that it's really needed that we create a companion document to our town code. Our town code is now a lot shorter than it was. It's a little bit more straightforward than it was. And if it's not possible for people to understand it, then we should work on making it even clearer. And I think that what is written here in this letter is really more about what the members of the 3 committees who've reviewed this. I don't know if I know that you actually appointed an ad hoc advisory committee or even who's on that, but anyway, we've talked about committees enough tonight, but you've had 3 committees look at this before we even talked about whether or not we were going to do this. And now we're here voting on something that I'm not even sure, well, first of all, I've already made clear I don't think it needs to go out. But this to me is more a letter about things that are priorities for the members of those 3 committees. And that just means that they want people who are considering renovations or considering moving to the town to really think about these things. And I understand that, but I'm still not sure that I see that that is the role of a town document. And, there's still language in this draft that, again, I feel like it's a little bit of wasting people's time to go line by line, but there are sort of suggestions in this letter that the town council will view certain building permit applications more favorably than others if they kind of, get in line with some of the priorities here. And that's not something that we do at the town council level. If people come in with completed building permit applications, we review them. We're supposed to be fairly objective about it. We're not viewing things more favorably. That's not how you can create a sense of expectation for people in the community and who are coming into the community as to what they can do with the properties. So, I don't know, Jeffrey, that I do want to go. I mean, you've already included my comments in the council packet. And I think,
okay,
well, I was pretty straightforward in them, and I'm not sure that I want to be involved in a drafting role. Okay. I said this to you with something that I don't think needs to go out.
Okay. Well, I hope that eventually this document can be amended so that all of your concerns can be addressed. But thank you.
Thank
Did
you.
you have any other?
Well, I mean, I guess I just wanted to make it clear to Paige that I did read through her draft and I appreciated the effort that she put into it. And I had some comments on that as well, but it doesn't seem like we're talking about it tonight. And if we come around to talking about her version of the letter, that I would, I'll have feedback on that at that point.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Zeughauser, should we go back to you?
No, I just want to applaud Franny. I think she's put in an enormous amount of time and energy into this, and I'm most appreciative of her hard work.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Panner.
Again, I'd like to, applaud Franny's work on this and Kristen's work and leadership on this and Paige's work. I know everybody's trying very hard to make the process more transparent in a world where sometimes judgments come down at a council level and it's not susceptible of being able to tell people in advance. And that's the very frustrating thing, is that there are judgment calls that happen in the process. But I'm very grateful for the people trying to wrestle with this very, very difficult issue. No further questions.
Okay, thank you. Council Member Circo.
Thank you. I'd just like to echo Morris's comments. I appreciated everyone's efforts on the council and in the two committees and the ad hoc committee. I support the effort. I like the idea of improving communications, making information available. It's not going to be a panacea, but clearly there have been some issues or misalignment of expectations and understandings when we've gone through recent building permits, and this might help in the future. So I'm hoping we can explore this further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Matt, are there comments or questions from our residents or guests?
There are no raised hands, so I will take that as no question.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like anyone is prepared to make a motion on this. So what I would suggest is that we go back to the drawing board and work with the town attorney and look at the document, the Chevy Chase Village document, and come back at some time in the future.
Could you have Matt circulate that document to the council?
Oh, definitely. Okay, thank you. We will now move to the public hearing motion to consider approval of the use of Town Hall green space for graduation celebration for 2020 graduating senior students in Somerset on Saturday, June 6th, with the rain date of Sunday, June 7th. And also should be added to this is the approval of placing banners in 2 different locations. And I'm going to turn this over again to Kristen Khanna, who is here tonight on behalf of the other parents. I also want to add that I'm going to ask the council to amend this to include a request by the 8th grade parents that we have that they're allowed to use the town hall grounds and to possibly put up a banner on June 14th or 15th. And the reason why this is on the agenda is because the council has to approve the use of the public space because it's not in the rules currently. And with that, I will turn it over again to Kristen.
Thank you. So just a few notes on the event that we're hoping to have next weekend. We have the seniors being able to decorate their cars, and a family member will drive the seniors on a very short parade through town. I can provide a map for the record to you, Matt. I could read it now, but I think I won't. It's just a very short route. It passes by many of the kids' homes so that neighbors could come out and clap and cheer without having to travel too far on foot. So we don't want to encourage people to come to town hall. We don't want to encourage people to congregate, obviously, anywhere, but that way they could just come out to see their neighbors. All attendees will be required to wear a mask when not physical distancing by at least 6 to 8 feet. Each student and their family would then park in the town hall parking lot and will be seated together on the lawn with a sign for each family that designates their respective areas. Families would be allowed to bring blankets, chairs, snacks, and drinks for their personal use only, and everything would be removed from the premises at the end of the event. We're hoping to have Pomp and Circumstance played. And with physical distancing in place, each student wearing a mask would individually walk perhaps a red carpet. We're working on that. Pick up a certificate, a commemorative t-shirt that says Somerset 2020. While our Master of Ceremonies, Mayor Slavin, would read each student's name with their student history, or sorry, their school history, and a favorite Somerset memory, their college and potential future area of study, or their post-high school plans. 2 teachers from BCC have been invited to give brief remarks. So students from all schools, both public and private, will be included or have been invited. And so far, 18 of 20 have RSVP'd that they would like to participate. So our request of the town is to use the space on the lawn immediately outside the town hall, to use the restrooms or have the restrooms available in town hall, which we understand will be able to be cleaned before and after the event, and that the town's equipment be used, specifically the PA system, the podium, and at least 1 microphone. We're actually seeking a couple of microphones so that each speaker would have his or her own. I'm told we may be able to borrow them from the swim team as well. So we're hoping to have 3. So we're requesting the help of the town staff to hang and then remove the signs that honor the graduates at both sides of Dorset Avenue. We're requesting $300 to help offset the cost of the banners, which may be reused in future years in the event that this should become a Somerset tradition. We also request that Matt send an email blast to invite the town to come out and cheer along the parade route, but again, not to attend the event at Town Hall. We'll actually encourage families to not hopefully need to use the facilities as well, but they will be available if needed. Last, if one of Somerset's police officers is available, an off-duty police officer, we would love to request a brief police escort, which we think would not take long as the kids assemble. The parade itself is anticipated to take perhaps 10 minutes or 15 minutes, but we also understand that given our circumstances right now, this may not be possible at this time to have an off-duty police officer for this type of event.
Well, we'll work. I think we'll be able to accomplish that.
I hope so. And hopefully things will have settled down by then.
Right.
So we thank you for your consideration and your heartfelt celebration of the graduates of Somerset.
Okay, thank you. Council President Schall, do you have any questions? Unmute her. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, Marnie.
Oh, that's okay. I just want to say thank you for trying to make this a really special time for the seniors.
Thank you.
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Council Member Zeughauser.
I agree. I think it sounds like a wonderful celebration, and I hope it's something that Somerset can do in the coming years, even if things have settled down. It sounds wonderful.
Thank you. Council Member Peel.
Sounds great to me. And I just wonder, Matt, if you have any extra masks, maybe you can leave some of them in the building for people in case they show up without a mask. Didn't you say you had some that you were giving out?
Yes. Yeah, we have lots.
They're fastened.
So that could be helpful.
Council Member Panner.
Thank you so much. I think it sounds fantastic, and Mikey is looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Circo.
It sounds great. I'm just curious, can the banner be used for both the graduating seniors and the graduating middle school students?
I believe it could be. Right. I mean, it says 2020, and we're hoping that it can be used in future years, just with a little modification.
Got it.
I'm sure we'll.
Thank you.
Thank you for. Okay. Are there any, Matt? Are there any comments or questions? Okay. No. So since there are no comments, Council, are you prepared to make a motion? And when you do make the motion, please add the dates for the 8th graders who the parents are meeting tonight to finalize all the details.
Well, I move that we approve the use of the Town Hall green space for graduation celebration for 2020 seniors in Somerset, Saturday, June 6th or Sunday, June 7th, that we include $300 to support the effort, and that we ask our town staff to do what they can to support it. In addition, approve the use of the town space for the 8th graders. And Jeffrey, what was the date?
It's tentatively June 14th or 15th.
June 14th or 15th.
Yeah.
Was there anything else?
No, that's it. Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you on behalf of all the families.
Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you. Next item, the town managers.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I would just suggest that we make sure that the proposed event will comply with the governor's May 27 executive order, which requires certain hoops to be jumped through before we can have an event. To make sure we comply with the social distancing requirements.
Oh yes, we will. We will do that. Thank you. Next is the town manager's administrative and fiscal reports. Mr. Town Manager.
Hello, thank you. So I will just quickly go through and try to hit the main items. In terms of the budget, a couple of things administratively I wanted to touch on. One was that our MML chapter is setting up a meeting with FEMA and MEMA to go help the municipalities go through reimbursement opportunities for COVID-19 related expenses. The county has asked that we go through FEMA and MEMA before we dip into the county funds, essentially. The second thing I wanted to note was that the mayor and I have been looking at insurance rates for the town to make sure that our insurance with Legit is the most cost-effective and best solution for us. And we've looked at the commercial market and we're essentially told that there were no offers that were anything near competitive to what we were getting. So I think we can confidently continue with our current insurance, knowing that it is the best solution for the money that we pay for it. As the county and state have started to open, our staff has started to shift into more regular work schedule. Our maintenance staff is back on their full-time schedules. They are still continuing to wear masks and keeping their distance to avoid contact as much as possible. Linda is, she's here with us now, but she's going to transition back into the office as well. I heard from Wayne today, who has been working on a very limited basis from home. He is going to start coming back through the town and working with the town starting next week. And then the other personnel related issue that I wanted to let you all know is that Kelly O'Klesson, who was the person that was in charge of Groundsmith Collective, who was our gardening and landscaping consultant, she met with a couple of designees from the PNRC and Environmental Committee and is scheduled to meet with Enrique and the maintenance staff to go over their schedule. And tomorrow, actually, myself, Marnie, Donna Harmon, and Patty Friedman, who are the two reps from the two committees, are going to follow up and have a discussion about the historical things that have been done, some of the opportunities that Kelly saw, etc. I won't go too much into the town pool. I think that everybody saw Jeff Mascott's email today about the swim team committee's plans for the summer. So that's very exciting. The pool committee did meet 2 weeks ago and did prepare some contingency recommendations for the pool season. But as we were getting ready for this meeting, I think they determined that things were moving so quickly that at this time they were not formally requesting that anything be approved by the council. But I did want to maybe put a feeler out, if you will, for the possibility of, and I'm glad that we sort of discussed getting a good protocol to make sure that there is enough headway for you all, but some type of special council meeting if we get more news about specifics of what it would take to get the pool open, and if they have to them hold a meeting about the rules, so that we might not have to wait until July. And similarly, another thing that might get we might be able to address at that time is tomorrow morning I'm meeting with Precision Concrete, who is the company that has done work in Somerset before and has grinded down pavement areas on the sidewalk that get raised, so they can grind it down and smooth out the surface. So I'm going to walk through the town and talk to them and hopefully get a bid for us, potentially to look at and squeeze into this budget season. And if not, we can look at it at a later date and the council can discuss if it's something that they want to entertain at that time. Fiscally, not a lot has actually happened in terms of our tax revenue since the last meeting. I did, though, get a estimate from the comptroller's office just to give us an idea of where we might be by the end of the year, since it's possible that this will be the last meeting of this fiscal year. So I put out the numbers. We're essentially on pace to have a pretty modest increase of about $10,000 from last year, which is a little less than 1% even. I think at this time we're still in the same place that we landed when we put together this quote unquote austerity budget, that there's no real need to adjust our estimates for this upcoming fiscal year, since the economic impact might not be realized for 1 year delayed, just based on the way that taxes are collected and then redistributed back to the municipalities. The one thing I did want to say is that our property taxes, we've been seeing this all throughout the year, and so I put in a request with the supervisor of assessments with Montgomery County to try to get an explanation on the dip in revenue this year. The one thing that I have been able to find out is that the assessments were done in parts of Somerset in 2019. So this would have been the first year where we would have seen new assessments on properties that had been newly assessed. So doesn't necessarily explain why they're down, but it does explain why they might be changed. And other than that, I will, I'll just hand it over to you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Council President Shaw, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just one, Matt. The $23,000 we spent on the bridge, was that to pay off the folks who did the work? We finally just, I didn't know what that was.
Yeah, that was a bond that was repaid to them.
Is that
That's it? Thank you.
Thank you. Council Member Zeughauser.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Peel.
No questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Panner.
Thank you, Matt. No questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Circo.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, actually, if I may, there is one quick thing I wanted to just give a quick update on. It's not something that was in my report because it's more a response to what's happened lately, but there's been a little bit of chatter on the listserv, and Councilmember Panner also flagged it as a potential issue, just to do some due diligence on what options we might have if the town were interested in beefing up security, essentially. And so I put in a request with MML to see what other avenues that they might recommend, and they had given me the information to try to contact the sheriff's office in Montgomery County to see if they had a list of police officers that might be interested in some more time. So that's an option. And then I also followed up with one private security company just to get a sense of if it's the type of thing they do or not, and what kind of costs we might be looking at. It was a brief conversation, so I don't have anything firm, but they do some work like that for HOAs and things like that. The one caveat is that there are different rules governing Virginia, which is where they've primarily done their work, and Maryland. Virginia gives a lot more leeway to private security companies to essentially carry out police functions, whereas Maryland's a little bit stricter on that. So that's something that we'll need to do a little bit more research if it is a road that we want to go down.
Okay, well, that's a nice segue into the mayor's report, because tomorrow at 3 p.m., we are going to have a Zoom public meeting with our newly designated unofficial police chief, Steve Chung. So I hope that all of you will be able to attend and can ask a question along that line. Thank you tonight for passing the declaration of Pride Month, LGBTQ Pride Month, which was at the request of Mary Wyszewski and others. And actually, Councilmember Evan Glass, who established Pride Month for the county and the raising of the flag last year at the county, is going to come to the town hall to raise the flag. So we will probably sometime this week. So we will try to find out what the best time is for anyone interested. And the last thing is that we are going to be having a hearing in sometime this month or maybe July, so that all of the first responders for fire to the town of Somerset, which are the BCC, the Bethesda Fire Board, and Glen Echo, they will all be there so they can clarify for everyone how they collaborate, because they actually collaborate. And the Bethesda Fire Board, which is a quasi-governmental agency, but it's actually a nonprofit. It's governed by a nonprofit, and we, as most of you probably know, we have a representative on that board, which is former Councilmember Barbara Condos. So she will be participating in that along with probably one of the chiefs there. Then Steve Friedman on Essex Avenue is very active at the BCC. And we have met with the chief, we've met with the president of the board there. Anyway, so he is going to be coming attending with that chief, and then we will be getting someone from Glen Echo. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Wait, no. Weren't we going to, wasn't Steve
Yes.
going to make a motion in this section?
I just want to introduce, I just wanted to introduce the opting into the Montgomery County pesticide law for us to vote on it next month.
Oh, he's introducing the resolution. And I think that during the work session, you authorized the town attorney to draft the opt-in resolution.
It's actually a code amendment.
Yes, the code amendment, right. We will do that. Okay, so thank you everyone, and we'll see some of you tomorrow or later this week. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.